Well, Rachel, this is amazing to have you here. Everyone, welcome to the Size Eyes podcast and the Casually Profound series. We're amazingly here at Defined Coffee, a gem of a spot here in
Yeah.
the Huntersville area. So thank you, Rachel, for coming out and um, being here and being present.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Thank you for sharing me with your audience.
Yeah, Something I like to start off with is anything that we're grateful for, just to have put us in that attitude of gratitude.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I think what's really present for me as far as gratitude goes is it keeps coming up is this I feel like I'm in the flow. If I'm busy or if something is going on that maybe I didn't choose and I'm feeling frustrated about it, it just feels like there's just an ease to it, a little relaxation into it, a little surrender into it. And it feels so much better than how I was operating before. And it just feels very present for me this week. So that's what I'll say. Feeling gracious and grateful for the flow, feeling easy.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. Already taking some notes on what to ask. So, um, yeah, for me, I really am grateful for the opportunities that have been provided um, after leaving my full-time job.
Mm,
Just having an open calendar in a sense to
yes.
have these opportunities that are now I'm more open to receive instead of having to pick and choose.
Mhm.
It's like say yes, say yes, say yes, and then eventually say no. So I'm really grateful
Right.
for um, opportunities that are coming into my life, and ones that I'm seeking as well. So just overall time and space and
Mm,
energy to do that.
freedom. Yeah.
Exactly, freedom.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you're no stranger to meditations or
Right.
visualizations.
Yeah.
So I'd love to do one.
Okay.
We probably don't do one in a conversation, but this is. We can close our eyes and relax. Sinking deeper into our breaths. In and out. Deep breath in and deep breath out. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Relaxing everything from our head, our neck, shoulders, chest, hips, knees, feet, toes. Everything fully relaxed, feeling at ease and feeling in flow. And from this relaxed state of mind, you can imagine at the end of this conversation, the end of this morning, feeling like we just had one of the most amazing conversations ever. New ideas created, connections strengthened, and fully present in the conversation, ready to take that energy through the rest of this day and this weekend. Just soak in that feeling for a quick moment. And when we're ready, we can come back to Huntersville, North Carolina, and Defined Coffee. Oh, I
I
love
don't
doing
know.
meditations.
I know. I don't know how people function to do anything productive without first a centering moment. I just don't know. It's gotten so habitual for me that it feels off not to do that. It just makes everything better.
Yeah, I want to normalize that.
Yeah, normalize it.
Yeah.
Normalize a centering moment.
Love it, love it.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, the first question I want to ask is, who do others think Rachel Walt is?
Oh, I think others think I am dynamic, passionate, enthusiastic. I think they probably think I'm more grounded than sometimes I might be internally, and loving and purpose driven.
Those are good answers. Lots of adjectives.
Yeah, well, I didn't cheat for this
Yeah.
podcast, but I was in a mindset coaching program a few years ago, and she actually had us ask our circles, like, what do you think of me when what energy do I bring when I enter a room? And when you think of Rachel, what do you think of? What comes to mind? So I have a Google document that has all these adjectives in it, and it has been such a blessing and a touchstone because anytime I start in on negative self-talk or feeling kind of lost and needing some clarity, I need to remind myself who I am. And I go to that Google Doc and I'm like, that's right. I am compassionate. I am kind. I am thoughtful. I am creative, you know? So a little bit of cheating a few years ago, but.
Love that. Well, I don't think that's cheating. I think that's, I would say that's being prepared for a test.
There you
that
go.
you don't know the test is coming
Yeah,
for.
that's right.
But is that something that, I'm curious about that. Like, is that something that you did feel, or you didn't feel as like centered in on or narrowed in on, like, hey, these are the adjectives, these are the words that I would describe myself, like before and after that exercise and that coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been personally development minded, honestly, even growing up and younger, but didn't really think of myself in terms of adjectives and describing myself in that way. Before that exercise and before that mindset coaching program, I really, defaulted to what a lot of us do, which is the roles that I serve. Oh, I'm a mom and I'm a speech pathologist and blah, blah, blah. And then I realized, well, I am not those things. Those are the things I do, and I embody my full self in those roles, but that's not who I am at the core. And the mindset coaching allowed me to change perspective that way and feel comfortable describing myself in those true, authentic adjectives. And then my own work that I do with my clients, also, you know too, when you work with other people, you're learning so much about yourself too. And your clients are giving you just as much as you offer them. And so working with clients and doing mindfulness and meditation, I have really honed in on a few of those authentic kind of North Stars is what I call them, or a code or value system that I feel like I embody, and that makes me feel good and who I truly am at the core, not just surface level.
What are some of those values and beliefs?
Freedom, definitely. I am a fiery Aries person, very independent, very headstrong, assertive, confident most of the time. And I need freedom to create and to start new things and to collaborate and to dream and use my imagination. So freedom is definitely a code for me. Ethics, I have strong values of what I think is right and how I operate. And authenticity is part of that. So I'm mindful about, where I spend my money and my time and my effort, and making sure it's aligned with sustainability and how companies might treat their employees and how people are treating each other is very core to me. That mission-driven, more integrated in regular life. Creativity too, creation, expression, those things are huge core values of mine, huge expressions of my authenticity. And the way these things express is really through everything I do and I am. So yeah, I mean, I guess there's different layers. I present, certain ways in certain environments, especially when I'm like on purpose, on fire, talking about stuff I love. I can get really excited and going and talk about it for 24 hours. And in other aspects, I can be very grounded and mindful and hold space for heavy things and not be swayed too much by emotion. But yeah.
Lovely. That's, yeah, freedom has, I think, mentioned it in the gratitude section as well. It's like,
Yeah.
it's, I found it to be a big piece for me as well.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a value until I realized I wasn't free.
Right.
And then through experiences, I was like, oh, this is now something that I really value because I've experienced the other side of it.
Exactly.
And
you
and
need
not
the
in
contrast.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so through no one's like fault per se, but it's
No.
like, it's just, it just kind of happened, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've kind of divided it up into like a few different types of freedoms.
Right.
Because there's like financial freedom, there's
Mhm.
emotional freedom, there's time freedom,
Mhm.
and just, I think, space freedom as well, spatial
Yeah.
freedom, being able to travel or being in a space that you want to be.
Yeah.
And so like right now I'm prioritizing time freedom.
Right.
Even though I may not have, millions of dollars, it's like yet.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. It's, like, okay, is my calendar free in a sense
Right.
of, am I doing everything that I want to do
Right.
and be? I guess I'd love to hear more about the journey of freedom for you, how you realized that was a value.
I have always, as a child growing up and everything too, had my own ideas of ways I needed to operate. That independence came on pretty strong as a young child. But as a child, you don't feel like you have freedom. You don't really understand that your parents can see a view you can't see, and that maybe your ideas of freedom aren't the best for your highest good that your parents can appreciate and try to guide you for. So I felt very restricted. And my parents were good about allowing me to explore a little bit. They're also, I'm a child of the 80s, and that 80s parenting was very much, what I say goes, and punishment and no feelings allowed to be expressed, and that kind of parenting. So emotionally, I did feel restricted. Like I said, I'm a pretty fiery, passionate person, can have a temper, can be very expressive in various ways. And so I definitely did not feel that freedom either. And growing up as a young adult and then a young professional, I felt more of the money freedom and the time freedom because I was single, making money, and being able to allocate where that money goes and what time I'm spending without having to consult many people other than my friends that I wanted to be around or someone I was dating or something. And emotionally was not super triggered. And then once I, got married and got into that communion and then started having kids, another level of constriction came because I was changing roles. My whole sense of self, all of my roles were totally changing. And I didn't really feel like I had the skills to grow in grace with that. Consulting with my husband around finances and stuff is pretty, mainstream, typical issues. He's got ideas, I've got ideas. We got to come to a compromise and work together on what we think is best for our family and all of that. And then, with kids, that's been the hardest container to find my freedom. And I feel like I've finally gotten there, feeling a little more in my self-worth, in my own power to ask for help when I need it, ask for support when I need it, seek out support when I need it. I mean, it's a work in progress, definitely. But, mothers these days don't have the village as we used to. We don't have coverage at work. Childcare is always an issue, and it's a financial constriction as well. And gender roles, although, I think we're evolving all of these things in a good way, still feel pretty constricting to most moms, I would say. I mean, I hate to generalize, but so working with that, and I have a lot of points of privilege financially with, our family set up. So it's a systemic issue beyond just my perspective. But it's finally coming around where I feel like, at least with my view and my circumstances, I've been able to tap into my personal power to access the support I need for more freedom. And I'm feeling way more comfortable now in that role as a mom. I mean, I've been doing it for 8 years, so it's been quite a journey too. I have 3 small children, and so it changes with every kid that you introduce. And we moved, and so there's been a lot of shifts that can either like accelerate that or constrict you more and give you more clarity on what you really want moving forward in that type of relationship and coming to grips with that role. So it's definitely been a process, and it's funny. I use a tool, as you know, as human design, and one of my biggest energies in my chart, which is a visual of how your energy works, kind of describes your personality in an energetic way, is all about control. And so it's been so funny that freedom is my biggest value, probably because I am learning and evolving and growing with working with control. And what does that look like?
Yeah, it's amazing to see. Something that I've noticed, I don't know, this is a theory, so I don't know if it's actually proven or not, but like what we didn't receive as children is kind of what we seek as adults.
Yeah.
And so it's like maybe I felt like I wasn't heard or didn't feel free.
Yeah.
Like growing up, and to no faults of parents or anyone else, right?
Yeah.
It just is.
Right.
And now it's like maybe I just want to be free and exploring, different things. And so it's like maybe I felt restricted growing up. So then it's like the opposite, the opposite or the complementary value is kind of shows through.
Right.
Is that something that you felt? I mean, you mentioned freedom and control. Is there any other?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see that, the friction and resistance that we get presented with in our life is definitely, in my point of view, here to teach us something, or we can use it for that. It might not feel worth it, but we can look at situations that are bringing up resistance and ask ourselves, like, what can this teach me? How can I grow through this? How can I evolve through this? That's another part of my energy chart, is to always be growing and evolving and expanding in that way. So it's easier for me to get in that mindset because it's a core, need of mine too, to always keep growing. So I definitely see, I mean, I think it's a gift, the experiences that I've had in my childhood, and I've had some trauma too. I was in an accident when I was really little, and we had a move that was pretty significant for me, and different points of things that are deep in your subconscious that have been written, as a child, that now through my healing journey, I'm coming around to and healing and freeing up energetically and subconsciously some of the things that I didn't even know were restricting me my whole life, but then came to know with my healing journey, and now feel like I've released a lot of that as well. So I think it's a gift for me, in my circumstance at least, to be able to have that experience as a child, all those experiences as a child, have the amazing parents I've got, and then be able to use that as a point of growth and expansion and learning, as I get older.
Gotcha. Is in terms of that growth, is how have, I guess, being a parent, being a partner, all these different roles that you hold, how have those contributed to that journey?
I mean, those have been the biggest refiner of my soul. Marriage and motherhood have been, the biggest refiner of my soul. Always an opportunity to check back in with myself and say, am I showing up the way I want to show up? How can I do this in my authenticity? And how can I show these kids and raise them consciously? And how can I be a conscious partner and respect and love, and show up with compassion with my partner, even when, I'm triggered in my body? Like, what are the tools I can use to be able to live authentically as that? I have a lot, again, referencing my human design chart and gene keys and astrology, all these tools that I use to kind of describe how my energy works. Family is all in my chart as well, as far as being the catalyst for a lot of the growth and healing of ancestral lines and all of that. So it feels very purposeful to be in the family. It feels, it was pretty uncomfortable at first. I mean, we were living in Chicago when we had our first kid. My husband was in a very high pressure job, going to business school part-time and on the weekends. I had postpartum depression. My son had colic. It was just a high stress situation. And at the time I was miserable and didn't get the help I needed, and felt pretty abandoned by everything, I think. Very much fell through the cracks of healthcare system, and not that there's a lot of structure around new moms anyways, but it was a huge catalyst. It was a huge catalyst for growth, and a huge, touchstone as far as, strength and resilience. And wow, you got through that. And, no, you couldn't access the support then, but now you've learned how to do that. And the signs and symptoms of anxiety and depression, and how to move through those and seek mental health care and counseling and medicine if needed, and all these other holistic healing tools that I find very helpful, like Reiki and meditation and things. So it's hard to look back at tough times and say that I don't like them or something like that, because I do feel an immense amount of gratitude for being able to come out on the other end with all of those strengths and refinement and growth and expansion, because now I feel way more confident and secure that when something else really hard happens, that I will have the tools, or at least trust myself to seek out support when I need it.
I love that. When you're talking about how marriage and motherhood have been some of the driving forces for that for that process and journey, it's similar on my end as well.
Yeah.
A few years ago, my brother, so he's a like practicing like hypnotherapist.
Okay.
And so like he had some like in-person stuff that he needed to do to get the training and the certification. And one of the things was about like there was his physical space, and like his eyes were closed and he had guided by energy and stuff like that. And there were people there who were also there to get their certification, but then they were playing the roles in that specific setting of me and my parents.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so navigating that.
Yeah.
And immediately after that, like this was in California. He was on by himself there. I was in Charlotte at the time.
Yeah.
And like immediately after that, on his end, I texted him like, "Hey, I think we need to have a family conversation."
Wow. Yeah. You felt moved.
Yeah, I was like,
because the energy, we're all connected that way. It's truly amazing. It's a miracle, really. We are all connected by these little invisible strings of energy. And when you get an impulse to text your brother about that and you followed through, you are participating in this whole connected game that we're all playing here. So never skip an impulse to text somebody if you get it. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of that impulse, intuition, guidance, however you view it, how do you lean into that?
Oh my gosh, it's like my favorite thing right now to talk about.
Perfect.
I feel like I've answered all of your questions with this disclaimer, but I feel like I've always known that I've been intuitive since I've been younger and then growing through it, but didn't have words around it necessarily. Gut instinct, I guess I would always call it, but I would have these knowings before things would happen. I would make decisions with my gut that felt really right, even if they didn't make sense. Information would just like kind of drop in about someone else, and then they would disclose that information. I'm like, what is happening? What is this? And I grew up in a Christian family environment as far as religious faith goes, and a Protestant kind of Christian upbringing. And the only term or like concept around that would be the Holy Spirit inside of our bodies that connects us to the greater God, the connected God. And then there were, parts of the Bible that would talk about spiritual gifts and knowing and psychic and healing and that kind of thing. But I feel like it was just kind of like a little blurb. And then it's like, oh, but don't really do that, because then we're going to think you're a witch and weird and like that's wrong or that's of the devil. And so it always intrigued me, but I didn't feel the freedom to explore those things, even though I did feel kind of a stirring in my soul to explore those things until I was a younger adult, a working professional, and the impulses would just be more obvious to me. I remember having lunch with a friend, a supervisor, and we would meet in the middle of our two hospitals and have lunch. And as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, she's getting a divorce or something like that, like some sort of piece of information, personal information that we didn't really disclose that much. Like we weren't close friends. We were just meeting up, for lunch. And she was talking to me during lunch and she was like, well, we're getting a divorce, blah, blah, blah. And these things kept coming like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I would feel like I would have these prophetic dreams. After my grandmother died, she visited me in a dream. And it wasn't she was in my dream and I just knew like I was dreaming about her. It was like her spirit energy was in my dream. And I saw her sitting on a screened in porch. And I looked, I'm like, what are you doing here? You're dead. And she just started laughing. And that soul heart to heart recognition, it was that in my dream. I'm like, you cannot convince me otherwise, that was not actually her essence coming to visit me in this subconscious altered state of dreaming, right? And that's happened to me many times with people that have passed away since opening this up a little bit and recognizing that I have certain gifts that I use my intuition to tap into to experience things that you can't see, but you can feel and hear. And so I could talk for hours about certain circumstances like that. Like I went to the University of Kentucky for college, and as soon as I got on that campus, I had a full body yes. I knew it was my college. There was no, like I hadn't walked the campus. I hadn't been indoctrinated into the University of Kentucky yet, like a lot of Kentuckians are. I didn't have that predisposition to love it. I just knew as soon as I walked there, I wanted to go there. So those like full body yes feelings, I call my intuition. It's a gut response. It's also my human design authority. It's called sacral authority, talking about your sacral chakra in your gut that is supposed to help you make decisions that way. And it's just that your body and those extrasensory inputs giving you the guidance, as long as you are paying attention to it and open to it and follow it and show yourself that it is actually helpful and it's actually working for you. And so those things have happened my whole life, but really the past probably 5 years now, I've been putting more focus on expanding my intuition, playing with my intuition, using it in almost everything I do, and definitely with my decision making. Since I saw that was my human design, I was like, oh, of course it is, because I've been making big decisions with my gut my whole life, and it's gotten me exactly where I needed to go, even when it didn't maybe logically make sense. So it's one of my favorite things to do is like receive an intuitive hit or like an impulse and then follow through with it and see the magic that can unfold if you allow yourself to believe outside the box.
Love that. Have you seen, as you've, I guess, practiced feeling that intuition or those sacral feelings, have you seen more of them happening?
Oh, yeah.
Because like for example, the founder of Mind Valley,
yeah,
Vishen Lakhiani,
yeah,
he like talks about like when you have an intuition, when you have an intuitive hit, when you follow it, and then when you have gratitude afterwards for like when it comes true.
Ooh, that just gave me chills.
Right.
That's one of my inputs. Yeah.
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 So it's like when he does that, he says the more grateful you are for those things, the more often it'll happen, and the larger the magnitude it'll happen.
Exactly.
And so I'm curious to hear if that's been the case.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It's almost a daily occurrence now. It's also a thing of not only is gratitude such a strong, powerful emotion, a high vibration emotion, it signals to the greater, universe, like, oh, Rachel wants to experience more of that. Okay, let's send her more of that. Yes, I think that's where he's coming from with that. I also think that you have to release a lot of conditioning around intuition and what it looks like and what it feels like and what it can give you, to be able to have access to that. So I think, yes, gratitude is an important piece of that growing your intuition, but I think the other ones are just as important. We all have limiting beliefs in our mind and our mindset, but also the conditioning around us. As I was speaking to earlier, in my upbringing, there was a little bit of like, oh, that's not okay to tap into your intuition. It's not okay to feel those body feelings and follow through with them if it doesn't make sense. Because our larger world too is very stuck in the mind. It's very logical. There's not a whole lot of room for the art of intuition and using that in mainstream language. I mean, we can all probably find a bunch of billionaire founders that will credit their gut instincts and intuition for where they've gotten, from. But it's not as widely accepted as a decision maker necessarily. So I think if you can work with yourself, be patient with yourself and compassionate with yourself, and ask yourself, like, what are some beliefs around my intuition? Does it always have to look like a gut feeling? Not to me. Intuition speaks to me through signs. If I am thinking constantly about a certain thing and then I start seeing it in my environment, like, oh, okay, this is grabbing my attention. I need to follow through with this. It's a chill down the body. Like when you said that totally resonated with me and I got chills down my body. That to me is my intuition. Like, oh, okay, I need to pay attention to this. And it definitely speaks to me with my gut intuition, but it's also a drop in of knowledge too. Like those little instances I was telling you where I just get a sense that someone else is happening or something like that. So your intuition, as long as you can ask for it, right? It's a muscle, it's a practice. You do have to start somewhere, wherever you are, and meet yourself there and practice with that, and then allow yourself to open your mind and heart to other ways to receive that intuitive information. And then source and your guides and your spirit squad out there is happy to come on in and give you more support and guidance and evidence in your physical world that you're on the right track. You're having that support. And then it is a momentum builder. I mean, it's like the moss on the rock rolling down the hill. Once you get it going and you ask for the support from your intuition and you allow your mind and heart to open, you can really start receiving on a consistent basis with practice. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does someone who, let's say, they don't know what intuition feels like.
Yeah.
And they've always made, let's say, decisions based off the logical mind, like, hey, I need to make a pros and cons list. I need to do all these things.
Yeah.
Here's the structure. Here's my path forward. I need to go to school. I need to get my master's. I need to do all this sort of stuff, right?
Right.
And like the thinking brain.
Right.
How does someone take that first step into following that intuition?
Well, I think that first step is probably unique to everybody. So I think in general, it would be very helpful to have some sort of contemplation practice around it. When we get still and silent, it's a lot easier to listen to our intuition, however that information might come, either a thought. Being in the logical mind is a very important part of the human experience. So I am here as an advocate for both. We need that logical structure. We need the knowledge seeking and the research, and we need the art of the intuition and the feelings and the expression and the allowing and receiving. Both are important. So if you are stuck in your mind and you've always just kind of been out in your logical mind and you're new to this, definitely getting still and silent in some way, whatever is accessible for you. Even if it's just like sitting in your car for 5 or 10 minutes before you go into the house, just allowing things to settle, no music, no podcast, just seeing what your body is feeling like, seeing what your mind is thinking about and your heart is feeling. Starting there is very basic and I feel like accessible to most people. And meditation has been a huge helpful tool for me to expand my intuition. So I am an advocate for meditation. I have a Reiki meditation library that I create meditations for, and you're sparking my curiosity and creativity to make an intuition one specifically. I always bring that into it, but to have one for people that maybe haven't been in touch with their intuition, make a meditation for that. Okay, noted.
Right. Well, it's a good thing this is recorded then.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, stillness and silence. Or if you really like writing, a journaling practice, just asking yourself or your higher self or your God or whoever you conceptualize as like the bigger part of you, ask for their help. Like, hey, like I really want to tap into all parts of me. Or even if you are in the logical brain and that's all you can conceptualize right now, like we don't use most of our brain, right? So like, okay, better parts of the brain that I haven't touched yet. Like, what do you want to tell me today? And just start writing, free writing, allowing yourself to step back, to think about what's next and allowing just words to come out. See what happens. Play with it. Be playful with it, open with it, have fun with it. But those are probably the easiest ways to get in. If you have a prayer practice, it's similar to meditation. So if you have a prayer practice, that's a wonderful place to start opening up your connection to your own spirit with the greater energy, greater source, God. And then allowing yourself to be more present in your life. And, ask for a sign. Like, if I'm on the right track, let me see a blue duck or something like that. And you will be shocked to see your reticular activating system working for you and bringing that blue duck into your environment. And then you can kind of see to believe, like, oh, okay, there's something to this. Let me play some more. So just start off simple. Play, be playful with it, be fun with it, and just follow your curiosity wherever that might lead is probably my best advice.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, something that I like to do is everyone has, has a quick rapid fire types of questions on podcasts. I'm more the opposite. I want to take a break and a proverbial ice bath, if you will.
Yeah, nice.
So we'll just kind of chill for 30 seconds, just kind of process everything, integrate everything.
Yeah, integrate it.
And then afterwards, I'll allow you to ask me a question.
Cool, okay.
And then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Awesome. Anything that comes to mind?
Well, I'm curious how you feel about your intuition. Do you feel like you're intuitive? Do you do any growth around intuition? How do you play with your intuition if you do at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
It's an amazing game to play. I really, so like connecting a couple ideas, intuition and flow. I really feel, I guess when I'm following my intuition, I'm in flow.
Yes.
So it's like, hey, there's, like you said, I feel intuition, like you said, it's a gut feeling.
Yeah.
And I've gotten better for myself at recognizing what is intuition and what is not intuition.
Panic.
Panic. Like,
what's a trauma response versus what is like, oh, this is an impulse I need to follow. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And like, I feel like I can feel thoughts from my stomach and from the gut and thoughts from my head. And it's like the ego talking.
Yeah.
And, or my pride or whatever else. And so I feel like I've gotten better, and it's still obviously a long process.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel that, okay, the more that I can feel something from my stomach, follow it.
Right.
Definitely seeing signs. I think when I see two of something, I'm like, okay, do this.
Yeah.
It's like maybe I saw someone's post on LinkedIn, and then like maybe a little bit later I saw like in person something that they were mentioning. Okay, I got to sign up for that workshop.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe I see someone's like license plate, and then I see something else like in a book.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, like I got to do this. Whatever I was thinking about. I love writing things. So on my whiteboard and journal, I write a question and then leave blank space and then potentially even some bullet points as well, but just bullet points or little dots.
Yeah.
And then, so I'll do that towards the evening, towards the night, and then let that be one of the final thoughts that I have going to bed.
Oh, I love that.
And then when I wake up, usually within 24 hours, there'll be something that I think of or something that I see, like, oh, this is the answer that I was looking for.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that process.
yeah, so it's like it's a very, um, but the more that I think of it, the less likely it is to happen. The more that I think of it
Right.
in my brain,
Right.
I feel like the less likely it is to happen in real life, or at least there's more delay in
Right.
it happening. So it's like really just letting go.
Letting go. The trust in following your intuition has been a huge lesson for me. Um, Following an impulse with detachment, putting an intention out there with detachment and trust, um, is so hard when you're first doing it. But I think when you're attaching it to your true core essence, your deepest why, um, it's easier because you do trust it, because you're like, I am fully embodied that I know this is a core value of mine. And if I let this intention go and it doesn't play out the way I think it should, I have a greater trust that whatever's better than that, my little human brain can contemplate here, is best. And then you don't have all those like strings of attachment. Like, what if this client doesn't sign? Or what if this deal doesn't go through? Or what if I never find a referral partner? Or what if I never find a relationship partner? Whatever the major thing is you're spending a lot of energy worrying about. I feel like it's easier when you're really grounded in your why, to be able to trust and be in flow more and allow yourself the field of possibility to meet you in ways that maybe you couldn't think about initially.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
even like for me, it's another instance is like a calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting stuff on the calendar when I'm in my more intuitive, I guess, feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm in that state, I'm like, okay, let me just put something on the calendar. And more often than not, that thing, especially if I let go and that
Yep.
detachment, then I'll look back and be like, oh wow, that happened.
Right.
Exactly what I put on the calendar.
Right.
Like I think what I shared at the summit about me writing the resignation letter for my full-time
that
job.
was the best synchronicity wild story, and I loved it. Yes.
But yeah, so like you're just following those, and writing is a great way for me to get into flow, and then I feel like that's a way for me to reduce my like mental state from what is it, beta to or gamma to
theta.
Yeah, it's like eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
So like if I can reduce my brain frequency into, all right, what is the calmest I can get to, so I can receive and essentially remove all the noise, so that there's signals. I think the signal's always there.
Yeah.
It's just
we got to tune to it.
Yeah.
We got to put our dial
tune to it, and then remove all the noise that's out there.
Yes.
And if we can follow that, then I think that's part of it.
Oh yeah.
I guess related to that, in your opinion and experience, what's your take on this more and more information overload that's going on, whether it's social media or news or anything like that, and how that's impacted our intuition, or specifically for you, in your case?
Well, I think tools like that, more information, internet, AI, apps, social, blah, 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 they can be out there. And I think the most evolved people can use those tools in a way that benefits them and creates more love and joy and peace and connection in the world. But the opposite is also true. Like, I can go down an Instagram rabbit hole for a good solid hour with not really bringing a lot of consciousness to it. I'm like, oh God, I was just on Instagram for like so long. Oh my gosh. So they're definitely distractions. I mean, they definitely are. And, the kids going to school now and they're memorizing dates and facts. I'm like, why are we doing this? We got the internet. Like, and not to take that for granted at all. Like, the internet might not be like that. We need to have a base knowledge, but it's like, how can we bring our full selves, our intuition, our energy, our logical, thoughtful, reasonable brain to use these tools in a way that moves everybody forward and more together, rather than numbing out. I think that's the amount of stuff out there to numb out probably hasn't changed. Like, humans can always just sit there and try to numb out, but it's how are we using the tools that we have. I mean, I feel like right now the conversation's all around AI Should we do this? And is it ethical? And it's going to, get rid of all these jobs, and that might happen. And it probably is already happening, obviously, but it's like, okay, so this is what it is. How can we then adapt and change and grow and think outside of the box and use these tools in a way that brings more jobs in and creates new industries, and that kind of contraction and expansion always is happening. And I think information overload, apps, technology advancements, all of that just contributes to that general pulsing energy of a universe expanding. Basically, it's like, how are we going to adapt to it, though?
Yeah, and I think
what are the intentions by it, right? Like, you can use money for really good things or really terrible things. Like, you can use the internet for wonderful things and really terrible things. You can use AI for wonderful things and absolutely horrible things. So the intentions, where the influence you're under when you're using these tools, I think is just absolutely foundational in everything.
Yeah, I think they're all, it's just like a knife, right? It's just like,
Yeah,
it can be used as a tool or a weapon.
Right.
Right. And every other thing that you mentioned right there, right? It's just, so I don't think it fundamentally, there's like obviously consequences and impacts, like you mentioned. But I think it's only as good as the people using it.
Well, and it's a catalyst for change too. Like our society, yes, is numbing out a good amount, I would say. Like, there's a lot of terrible things happening. We're always knowing about them everywhere, all over the world. We've got a lot of crises, a lot of inequities, a lot of things to wrestle with. And this could exacerbate it, but it could also be the catalyst for us to be like, oh, whoa, I really need to get still. I really need to have some self-healing tools. I really need to have community. So, I'm having chills. Community support in real life because of all of this. So it could be, if we choose to take it that way, a catalyst for more growth and expansion and love and connection. Just like any micro thing did. Like the postpartum depression in my life was a horrible experience at the time, but now I've used it to fuel more growth and consciousness and awareness and closeness with my family. So, we have the same ability to do this with all these tools. It's like, will we take this challenge?
Love that. Yeah, I think like AI and intuition, I think it'll, like you said, I feel like it's a catalyst to allowing us to lean more into our intuition.
Yeah.
Because it takes away some of the stuff that, let's say, was robotic or mechanic.
Right.
About like, rote memorization or about information gathering or information acquisition. And then, so like, if all the information is there, then that means there's more strategy or more intuition that is reliant from humans.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think if we can use that in that way, it'll allow us to lean in more into our intuition.
Grow those tools that we really have neglected in this kind of generation, these past few generations. I mean, our ancestors were very connected to their intuition because it's like all they had. And then we like reverse to the way opposite spectrum. So I'm wondering if this could be a balance of, yes, these tools are very useful and helpful, and we still need our humanness, our emotions, our intuition, our ability to have critical thinking to meet in the middle for the greatest good.
Something I just thought about. I think it's like artificial intelligence is like what we maybe, like, it's almost getting to a point where we can automate this artificial intelligence to a point where it's everything that rational human mind knows. It's maybe the real intelligence instead of artificial is our intuition.
Exactly.
And so we're like combining the two.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm curious, switching topics a little bit, what do you, I guess you've mentioned fiery as an adjective to describe some of the things that you are passionate about.
Yeah.
In addition to human design and Reiki and all the practices, is there anything that maybe I don't know, or people in your circle, in social circles, may not know about that you feel fiery about?
I bet they know, just because at this point, I'm really more embodied. I'm not as scared to express things that maybe initially I was scared. Definitely my intuition and playing with that. Not everybody in my circle knows how I use my intuition and how I practice it almost every day. And my broader spiritual concepts that have changed and grown, that. And I mean, it's pretty out there, but I'm obsessed with creativity. I think that's a magical way to use your intuition too. So anything around creativity, I'm just all over. Art, I just feel this need to create art. I always have. I lack the skills to actually make it like a thing, but I have that need. I'm calling that in right now as like more of a creative artist practice. And I mean, again, this is probably out there, not a shocker, but I have a very deep sense of justice and equity and making sure we have community care as well as self-care. And, you know, I don't think that's a shocker. I've been like that since I've been little, like, this is not fair and you need to let him know and whatever. But just a sense of speaking up for people that don't have as loud of a voice as maybe I do. I have an open throat chakra in human design, so I am called to do this as well. But how are my practices benefiting the greater good? How is my spending my money benefiting the greater good? How is you know, my impact in the world going as far and as wide and as fair and as inclusive as possible? I think is, you know, those things are always in my mind. If they're not spewing from my mouth, they're always in my heart.
Yeah. So like some of those systems that you mentioned, and are there any, like, if there was some things that you had to change or like modify or adjust about these support systems that are currently there, or when you were growing up, or that are currently around you right now, what are some of the things that come to mind? Like, hey, like I would propose changing this. I would, let's say, if people could think differently about these sorts of things, that would be beneficial.
I think, I mean, how can you pick one, right? It's just like,
Sure.
they're all so damaging. I think, you know, social justice things are such a tangled web of structure issues. So it's hard to say just one thing, but if every human knew how much worth they have and how much love inside of them that they are in their core essence, no matter what deeds they've done, no matter what thoughts they've thought, no matter what actions they've taken that they regret, no matter what stories they're telling themselves, if they knew how loving and compassionate and creative and beautiful that they are, that would just really solve all these problems. Because I heard a quote from someone else that I can't remember who it was, but like, people don't do terrible things, or even not terrible things, but just like unhelpful things because they hate other people. It's because they hate themselves. And that overflows from themselves because, you know, we get triggered by other things that are really shining a light for us of things that we could help heal inside of us. So that's why my company has changed the world from the inside out, because this could be a multi-pronged thing if we can come back to our true core essence of ourselves and then pour out into our communities in every single way. If every single person was able to do that and change the way they intended with their money, with their relationships, who they hung out with, where they spent their time, what jobs they were having, what businesses they might create, what impact they might have, if they were able to come from their authentic, true core place, their deepest place, not the conditioned place, I mean, a lot of these issues would settle. You know, inequities and income and race and access and inclusion and just feeling heard and seen and validated, like, then it's coming from that same place of like self-hatred and denial and, you know?
Yeah. How has that impacted any of your parenting?
Oh my God, it's everything.
Yeah.
I parent them with that in mind all the time. Like, probably too seriously, honestly. Like, get a grip. Like, I need to take myself way less seriously as a mom. I think I'm doing better. I'm doing better, but that's a work in progress. I also have a Capricorn moon, which I feel like contributes to some of this. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at these world changers, basically, is how I look at them. And like, how can I provide a rich environment for them to be able to express their feelings, find their true self, explore it and make mistakes in a safe place, in a safe way, have experiences that contribute to their growth. so they can show up with less conditioning, less, self-harmful stories in their mind and in their hearts about what's right and what's wrong, and really come from their true self. That's like my major goal, is to just provide an environment for them to be able to do that, so they can grow into adults with control, with money, with time, that can contribute to the unfolding of greater equity and justice and joy and freedom and love in the world.
What's been one of any past limiting beliefs that you've had?
Oh my gosh, we don't have enough time for this. I still got them too, right? No. Oh my gosh, there's so many. What category would you like? Parenting? Sure. Myself, just personally.
Yeah.
I thought I was not disciplined. I thought bad feelings were bad. I thought I was a bad person for having negative feelings. I have had to unlearn so many things about social justice issues. That is like a whole thing. I work with Brownicity with Dr. Lucretia Berry. She's one of my friends now, and she has helped me unearth and unlearn a ton of stuff around race and racism and all of that. Just that I can't do things like, I can't do that because of fill in the blank. I'm a mom. I can't do that because I'm a mom. Well, let me check that real quick. I can start a business when I'm a mom. I can create structure around that. I can't afford this because of whatever. Well, maybe if I just reorganize some of my finances, I can channel money towards this. The squad was one of those things. All of last year, I was like, I can't do the squad. I ain't got that money right now. I just can't do the squad. And then it just became abundantly clear that like I needed to have that networking and community and learning and support and all of that. And, my husband and I have been self-financing my company up until now. Now it's profitable. We don't have to do that as much, but I went to him and I was like, I am like actively leaving money on the table. I'm actively leaving support on the table. I'm actively leaving training, blah, 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 all the benefits of being in a networking group like that. And he's like, okay, we'll prioritize that. And, we'll move around some other things. I'm like, oh, yeah. Like those things like previously is not doable. And then all of a sudden it becomes clear when you take some of those, veils off and some of the conditioning off and really challenge your thoughts around something.
Mm-hmm. 1 second. Switched off. Oh, still recording. We're good.
Cool.
But
I think the first step is like my grandma always said, the more I know, the less I know. And then that's kind of been my motto. Like, the more I learn, the less I truly think I really know. So when I'm really sure about something I know, I'm like, let me do a quality control check on that. Let me see if that's actually true and hold the possibility that I can be wrong, and then fact check myself.
When I really know something, it's like there's I think the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah.
It's like the curve of like learning and how, I forgot what the axes are, but like your confidence and your knowledge, it's like goes up, and then it's like, oh, I know everything about it,
yeah.
And then you're like the valley of despair.
I know nothing about it. Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, it's a gradual it's a gradual climb back up too.
Yeah.
Okay, I know more about it, but now I know what I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all the limiting beliefs and like the stuff that that you've had to unlearn, and I think everyone's going through that process.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can speak for myself. I'm going through a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
Journaling has helped. Talking to people. Crying is a great way for me.
Crying is a wonderful way.
Yeah, I didn't know it was so cathartic.
Yeah.
But the last 1-2 years,
yeah,
I just used it as an amazing tool.
Well, and how many times have I held in a cry? For good reasons, for good, quote unquote, good reasons, bad reasons, appropriate in my limited view of what I think is appropriate. Now I just let it go anytime. Just like, these tears need to come out. And the more I stifle, the sicker I'm going to feel. Like, just let it out. More clarity, more peace. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when I left, the day that I left my job, I was in the car and the walk back, and I put my stuff in the car, and then immediately after I got into the driver's seat, it just bawled.
Yeah.
And
Closure. It was a big transition out of life. It's so many feelings that can't be held in your body, right? Like just have to come out. I mean, your tears release so much too. Like literally the fluids have so many things that need to be released for you to be able to come back to a natural relaxed state in your nervous system. So yeah, I think that's really clarifying. Really, and really just like you said, talking to people. I mean, I talk to a therapist once a week. I meditate every day. I talk to myself all the time, and friends, and you know, coaches and mentors. And how can I surround myself with a good support system that can help me fact check myself and expand my horizons and hearts around it.
yeah, I think just being open and vulnerable, and then I'll sometimes have intuition about, oh, I feel like I'm going to cry today.
Yeah.
and
you can
then,
feel it coming. Yeah.
It's like I'm holding back something.
Yeah.
And then it's like, let's let it go, let it all out.
Yeah.
Release it.
It's like, oh, that's why I needed that cry. Yeah.
Like I think the most recent one I had was I finished watching The Good Place
on
Netflix.
I never saw that.
Yeah, it's a pretty good show. I watched it for a while, like the first season, and then restarted it recently because some of my friends have mentioned it.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, let me finish this out. And then towards the end, I was like getting emotional, and then I had could feel a lump in my throat when I was watching it. And then later that night, I was just in the mirror, just like staring at myself into my soul.
Yeah.
And then I don't even know why, but I just started crying.
Yeah.
I was like, I needed that.
You needed it. It was coming out. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we need to normalize that crying. Normalize crying. I was like that with the Ted Lasso finale, and I thought that was a cute show and all of that. I didn't expect the whole episode. It was like tears were dripping. I was like, like, wow, I really needed that. Who knows what was rolling into that watching that finale, but we gotta stop restricting our feelings like that. I think that's kind of this generation's lesson as a whole, is like, how can we come into being in touch with our feelings and use them as tools instead of shaming devices?
Yeah, love that. Is there, as we wrap up here, is anything that we haven't touched on? Well, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff, but that you'd like to share, or about your businesses, about what you're doing, that you'd like to put out there?
Yeah. Well, my business is Crafting Good, and I offer Reiki meditation in the library, but also custom one-on-one mentoring engagements where I use these tools like Reiki meditation and human design and contemplation to help reorganize your energy and get yourself really into a flow state, right? Really into your authentic self and making decisions from that place instead of from the usual kind of rat race automatic place. And yeah, I've got a workbook out there. I love human design. I just feel like it's really a supportive tool. It gives visuals and language around some of these subjects that are so kind of esoteric sometimes and really ambiguous. It helps clarify that. I'm a visual learner too, so it gives me a lot of good visual input for some of these and ways to talk about it. So if anyone is interested in that, I'm here for them. I am no human design guru or expert, but I've been on using this tool for years and have gotten so much clarity and really have seen wild results in my clients. And so it's just, you can't not do it type of a thing. So yeah, it's really exciting me. I feel very on purpose with that business. It feels very kismet and aligned and has really, taken off this year because I have made difficult decisions within the business of what I'm going to offer and putting myself out there, busting my own limiting beliefs around a lot of stuff, putting myself out there. And so, with the help of mentors and coaches and consultants and support systems, I've been able to create, offers that feel good for my capacity and that my clients also enjoy. And I was telling Jessica Lackey yesterday actually, like, it just cracks me up that this stuff is working now. Like, I set a very aligned marketing plan and it's working. I set a very aligned sales flow and it's working. I've set aligned offers that feel good, like as far as the price goes and the offering goes, and it's working. And I'm like, dang, yeah, okay. Like,
Love that.
there's something to this, being in your true authentic self, knowing your extreme core, deepest why, making decisions from that place unapologetically, no matter what the shoulds are, no matter what the marketing experts are telling you, and all these experts and gurus are telling you, like really feeling in your worth about the decisions you're making, about all of these ways you're expressing your energy, your money, your time, your effort, blah, 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 your relationships. So, yeah, that's what came out. I don't know.
Love that.
I'm sure there's much more I could blabber about, but Crafting Good feels very aligned and exciting right now. So, and I am taking on new clients in various ways. So if people are interested, they can definitely reach out.
Perfect. I'll include those in the show notes and everything. Okay. Well, this is awesome. Amazing time.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is such a generous offering you give, where people can just really speak about heart things and deep related topics. And so I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, your time, your energy. And don't stop being your authentic self.
Oh, I'm going to try not. I try not every day. Yeah. You too.
Yeah. Appreciate the time. And thanks for listening to and watching to another episode of the Casually Profound series in the Size podcast. See you next time.